Now please help me welcome one of Verizon's partners, the founder and CEO of The Plug, Sherrell Dorsey, who will moderate the Funders panel.
Thank you so much, Nia, for that incredible introduction. I am extremely excited about today's conversation and all of the subsequent conversations that will take place this afternoon. And again, we are discussing today, how do we improve equitable distribution of funding in Chicago? We have some incredible guests today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So if we can go ahead and get started with you, Neal, please introduce yourself, your title, your company, and just a quick background for me. All right, let's move on to Samir. Samir, please introduce yourself, your name, your company, and just some quick background.
Sure. Can you hear me just fine?
We can hear you.
Perfect. Hey, everyone. My name is Samir Mirza, and I'm the co-founder and executive director of Fifth Star Funds. At Fifth Star, we are building a fund where the city of Chicago can come together to be the friends and family investors of Black tech founders. With our innovative fund structure, anyone can donate to our fund as a tax-deductible donation. You don't have to be an accredited investor to contribute. And so now anyone can be part of the solution to donate $10, $100, or $1,000. We then use the funds to invest in pre-seed Black-led startups, and 100% of all the investment returns stay within the fund. So we're building a fund to be evergreen, self-sustaining, and multi-generational, because as our startups succeed, the returns will then allow us to invest in more Black founders. Prior to Fifth Star, I was the co-founder and CTO of TapCommerce in New York City. We scaled the company, and we were acquired by Twitter in 2014. I then spent multiple years in San Francisco at Twitter. And then I was in Berlin for a couple of years before moving back to Chicago last year. And I'm very excited to be back home.
Thank you so much, Samir. Jessica.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Patton, and I'm a co-founder and principal of Fifth Century Partners. We are a purpose-driven private equity firm that partners with small and medium businesses to accelerate growth by harnessing diversity as a strategic advantage. And looking forward to this panel.
Great. Leandro.
Hey everyone, buenos dias. Leandro Bedolla, VC analyst over at M25, which we're a pre-seed and seed VC firm headquartered in Chicago with an Indy office. And we invest in startups headquartered in the Midwest, which we define as the 14 states between Kansas City, Minneapolis, and Pittsburgh. We're generalists, investing in just about any industry. We lead rounds, participate, etc. Run the Midwest startup side, and we're the most active VC in the region with 104 portfolio companies across the last 6 years. Happy to be here.
Incredible. Thank you, Leandro. And buenos dias to you as well. And Neal, please.
Hey there. Thank you. Am I coming through okay?
You are coming through just fine.
Awesome. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Neal Sales-Griffin. I am the managing director of Techstars Chicago. I've been involved in the local Chicago tech ecosystem for the past 14 years. Started startups, worked at VCs, a lot of stuff in between. But what I do at Techstars is my job is to find early stage founders who are ready to accelerate their growth as a business. And what we've been doing over the past couple of years since I've been managing director is trying intentionally and very heavily to diversify our classes and the investments that we make. So in addition to running that accelerator, I'm also a part-time venture partner at Math Venture Partners, which is a local VC in Chicago. And then on top of that, I'm also spinning up a new fund through Techstars called Rising Stars, which is meant to be a friends and family round first check for founders of color who are underrepresented. So very happy to be here and excited for this conversation.
That's exciting, surely exciting. I am just, first of all, enthusiastic about having the opportunity to host a panel with VCs. I mean, you all are anomaly in this space. So we're going to dive into how you all got to where it is that you are, and obviously have such robust experience here that we're going to be able to dive into this afternoon. So we know, and as mentioned in some of the earlier panels, that Chicago's venture capital community has been criticized for being way too homogenous. We heard the stats around the lack of funding, even going to Black and Latinx founders as well. And how did you all get into this space, and how would you encourage other people of color to enter into the industry as you have? And we can go ahead and start maybe with Leandro. Let's start with you.
Sure. So, hey everyone. Well, the short answer is it was a grind. As background info, I grew up in an immigrant family from Mexico, in a low-income community outside Chicago, and went to school at a non-target college. I didn't even know if VC even existed or was a thing until I stumbled across it in my last year of undergrad. And, I dug in. I decided that's what I wanted to do. And so throughout a 2-year period, I taught myself everything I could online, reached out to others, applied to VC and stepping stone jobs that eventually led me to a post-grad internship in San Diego that culminated in me working as an associate for the Techstars Anywhere Accelerator. What helped me out the most to break in was getting experience doing due diligence on early stage startups as a volunteer analyst for the Tech Host Angels, an angel investment group, while I worked full-time elsewhere. So from what I learned the hard way, there are 4 main things I'd encourage those trying to break into VC to think about and act on. So the first one is leverage the growing amount of quality online resources to learn about startups, VC, the jargon and the landscape. I'm talking about podcasts like the 20-Minute VC, Confluence, The Full Ratchet, newsletters like Chicago Inno, Strictly VC, Lolita Top's work, following people on Twitter like Mike Conwell, Elizabeth Yen, and joining communities like Gen C VCs, which I would be super active in their Slack community and participating in their pitch night events if I were trying to break in right now, and even if I weren't in Gen C. Secondly, identify your value prop. So personal strengths and interests, and whether it's backgrounds in a specific industry, skill set, like maybe you've been in tech on the product managing side, marketing, whatever that you could leverage. And there are firms that specialize in different areas of those that you can use as your strength. Third, try to simulate the job, like researching and coming up with your own investment thesis, which is essentially, the sub-industries, trends, and startups you would be interested in specializing or investing in. Attend demo days, get involved with the startup community in your region, etc. And then fourthly, I'd say reach out and befriend VCs, specifically those more junior, like analysts or principals, after you level yourself up. So, cold emailing, DMing, those individuals, especially those involved with affinity groups like Black VC, Latinx VC, VC Familia, Women in VC, etc. Having an insider that you can, kind of like, for lack of better words, get feedback on, that can tremendously cut your learning curve and point you towards opportunities and resources you didn't know about, like scout and fellowship programs, open roles at firms they know, etc.
Way to hustle, Leandro. You've got some great fans really putting you out here in the chat. I'm very impressed, although you said it was a hard pathway. Your diligence and level of commitment, not just to the industry of VC, but also to the community and really tapping community resources and being of service really speaks volumes. Jessica, I want to toss this question over to you. How did you get to where you are today?
Absolutely. And I just want to say thanks, Leandro. I think those are all amazing tips. And I hope you guys penciled a couple of those things down because they were very real. Those networks are all super important. Follow up with Leandro, tweet at him if you miss some of them. So for me, I was more of a traditional finance person. I went to Howard for undergrad, majored in finance. And when I got out, I started working in private equity thereafter. So I've been in and around finance in different ways, but it still wasn't necessarily how I broke into venture. I actually got into venture really through a lot of the things that Leandro mentioned, but specifically networking. I think the most important thing that I've always done in my career is a combination of networking and an intentional focus or thesis on my career. So specifically, I got into venture capital and I worked at Andreessen Horowitz because I had a thesis around wanting to invest in Black people and spend more time with our community. Exactly the conversation we're having. How do we bring more underrepresented folks into technology from an LP basis, from a founder basis, and from a talent basis? So that's how I started to network my way into VC with a thesis driven and networking. And I guess I want to just point to or recommend or push on a couple of things that Leandro said, but I'll say them succinctly because he gave you a lot of great detail. Build an investment thesis. And specifically, when you think about your investment thesis, start on what you're uniquely knowledgeable about and passionate about. Focus on your zone of genius. You can look up this word, but it's a combination of all of the areas that I've just mentioned. So figure out what your zone of genius is and spend time there, just putting some words and verbiage around your investment thesis. And within that investment thesis, the sector, talk to founders. It doesn't have to be anyone that you know. Reach out to them on Twitter, find their websites, just reach out in any way and start to have conversations to undergird your investment thesis. And then the last thing is network, talk to investors, talk to them about your investment thesis, sell them on the founders you want to invest in. And this is a way that you can start to create the web effect that we've all mentioned.
That's great. Thank you so much, Jessica. Samir, let's kick it on over to you here.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, +1 to everything that's been said by Jessica and Leandro. I love Leandro's like 4-point bullet list. So maybe I'll add a fifth or sixth. I think one thing that was key for me was working in an early stage startup. I feel like that gives you kind of two things. One is the operational experience to just wear multiple hats, but also have empathy on the founder experience. And I think that helps you be a better investor as well. But I think what that also gives you as well is a network. So I think coworkers, teammates that potentially could be investors in the future, or people you invest in, but then also building relationships with that startup's investors, I think also can pay dividends as well. So I think for me, starting my career or working with early stage startups allowed for an easier transition into investment later on.
Awesome. And Neal, please, any additions here you can add, and also sharing a bit more about your journey as well to this space.
All right, I'll try my best to keep it tight because there's a lot to talk about, and all the, everybody nailed it. What Leandro was saying really resonated with me because like I forced my way in. I was just like, no matter what, like I'm gonna do this, and there was a lot of resistance along the way because I decided I wanted to get into VC back in like 2006, 2007. So I was a sophomore or junior in college. And I had already started my first company, and I had enough experience through that and through my second company where I was like, okay, well, this thing I just learned about venture capital sounds really cool to get into. But at the time, I didn't perceive myself as qualified, right? So I had that imposter syndrome kick in. And I did all the things that everybody was talking about with the resources that were available at the time, which were far fewer than there are now. There's so much out there that you can like read and learn about to like spin up. But the best advice I think I can give is to make sure that you take the time to actually understand what it's like on both sides of the table. So don't just immerse yourself in venture capital, immerse yourself in what it's like to be an early stage founder, immerse yourself in the experience of how difficult it is for these founders to actually raise capital, what those meetings are like, what goes down, what preparation is involved, and how actually, things get done and how things don't get done. Meaning like talk to people who've struggled to raise and ultimately did not understand what happens in all those perspectives. And once you immerse yourself in those things and gain some legitimate experience, like Samir was talking about, you'll be poised to actually do something good. So the last thing I'll say here is help companies, actually help companies. Don't like the investment thesis is great advice, but like just there are companies out there who you can work with, who you can talk to, who you can like find a real problem to help them solve, to understand what it's actually like to work through startup issues. And you just might have an opportunity to join one or start one yourself too. But I largely believe that it's important. The best investors that I've interacted with have some sort of operating experience and a way to empathize and relate to the founders that they're investing in.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more, Neal. So I want to jump into this question. I think this, of course, is the theme of this entire conversation, which is how do we create greater diversity, particularly on those who are controlling the purse strings, folks like yourself here in venture capital. So what needs to happen here for us to create much more diversity in firms, getting hustlers like yourselves into these spaces and positions because of not just the wealth of knowledge and expertise and adeptness that you bring to the industry, but also your unique backgrounds, where you're from, where your family's from, the languages you speak, all of those things create a richness and relatability, just as Neal was referring to, the ability to just kind of empathize with founders who may have the same similar background. How do we get more of that here into firms, be it in Chicago or anywhere, and then making that translate into funding companies that are led by diverse or underrepresented founders? I'll go ahead and Jessica, maybe punt this to you first, and we'll go down the line.
Awesome. So I'll start by saying I think the solution is pretty simple, but it requires extensive work. And when I say that, I think it starts at hiring diverse candidates within firms at every level, from analyst to GP. Where a lot of firms I see that firms tend to stop is at that analyst associate like level, or bring someone to principal and they don't make the jump to GP. So we have to make this a priority. And when I say making diversity a priority, I kind of mean three things. So that's creating a culture that's welcoming and creates true belonging inclusion. Because if you bring someone to a firm and it doesn't really have the tenets and doesn't speak to the culture, people are going to leave. I think it's calibrating a thoughtful hiring process that's inclusive and doesn't reflect the typical pattern matching that we see that happens in hiring processes, which is this person is from a top 10 school, or they worked at this big tech company as a PM, et cetera. And then I think the third is providing the support so that new hires can thrive and get promoted. I'm sure my colleagues here have other great things to say, but I think those are three that really resonate with me.
Leandro, like everyone here on the panel, you forced your way into this space. So very curious to get your thoughts here. How do we create much more diversity in the VC?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's someone in a previous panel was talking about, popular phrases that have come up over the last couple of years, and the one that comes up to mind right now is, hire and wire. And specifically for those at VC firms that might, are looking to bring on someone, whether it's analyst, partner, or in anything between, I'd say just as you go hard and creating your pipeline for deals and potential opportunities, apply that same energy and, creativity to the different talent pools. So, for example, all of us here in the panel and others that we know of that are championing, things like this in the community, like we all know at least a couple of awesome people that are trying to break into VC right now in the near term. So, hit us up, hit up the leaders of, incubators, accelerators, founders that from diverse backgrounds. Like, I'm sure they have a built-in network already that you could tap into. And then once you, hopefully I'm assuming you would have a, as close to meritocracy as possible type of hiring process. And after you make the hire, set them up for success, onboarding them and, bringing them up to speed, and then, hopefully plugging them into other communities where they are then able to, rise up and, be a big value add to your fund, to their future, and to the companies that you will invest in.
Absolutely. And Neal, I love that you spoke about some new opportunities coming through Techstars. And I know Techstars in the most recent years has been very intentional around creating partnerships across the country with different organizations that are focused on connecting Black and Brown founders across the board to opportunities through the accelerator. So maybe you can speak specifically to your role within Techstars and sort of how that might be or may not be creating a pathway for more folks like yourself to come in to become those investors in diverse-led companies.
Oh, yeah, big time. And I'll be honest, like I'm really proud and impressed with Techstars and their commitment to this and their support of me and others within my organization to further these initiatives. That being said, I want to simplify my answer and just say that I think the more successful diverse founders we have, the more likely those founders upon success have an opportunity to invest and give back and join the ranks at that GP level that Jessica's talking about, or starting their own funds to make this happen. So that's my focus. That is almost like my blinders up singular focus, is the more diverse founders I make successful, who have exits, who scale, who develop the experience, the more helpful they're going to be and the more effective they'll be at relating to the founders that need trust in addition to capital in order to feel good about the investments that they're brokering. So that's really it. Techstars has enabled and empowered me to do that in some major ways, both through my own accelerator with full autonomy for Techstars Chicago, through supporting lots of other managing directors who are also focused on diversity by measuring it and being very transparent about it, owning up to the fact that they haven't been great about it this whole time and that they're only recently getting their act together about it. I think it's a good model for a lot of other people to follow, but there's a lot more work to do, and I'm pushing really hard on the inside to make it even better.
Absolutely. Samir, as someone who has made that transition and fluctuated from, again, running a startup to getting into the VC space, I mean, founders like myself love to work with folks like you as well from that operator lens. And so expanding those opportunities, for aspiring VCs, what does that look like potentially, like in a perfect world?
Yeah, I think what I'd add is, so it's hard to improve without knowing where you're at first. So I think as like a step zero, as a company, whether you're early or later stage, get self-reported data on the demographics of your company. So I know this is very eye-opening when I was at Twitter, when we did that, and we also released it publicly. I would say it kind of changed the culture of knowing where we were at, and then we were able to set goals after that. But then I think similarly at a VC firm, like gathering stats on the makeup of your portfolio. And actually, I was really excited last year to see many Chicago VCs do that, and also release those stats on Twitter as well. I also love what Chicago Blend is doing as like a city aggregation, a data collection on that. And then I think, as Jessica was saying, increasing the funnel for both hiring and deal flow. I think I just want to say, like, in building Fifth Star, so sometimes I'll hear about some investors saying, oh, like, it's hard to get access to deal flow, but at that early stage for Black-led and Brown-led startups, there's so many that are fundable. So I don't believe it's a deal flow problem at all. They're out there, and then our mission is to then help them be also get to the later stages of funding as well, beyond the earlier stage.
Thank you so much, Samir. So we're going to pivot here as we start to close out this discussion. One of the challenges, especially if you aren't necessarily a founder or someone that's living in some of those what we deemed hotspots, and I think this has drastically changed considering the pandemic, but if you're not living on the coast, if you're not in New York, you're not in California or Boston or Massachusetts, where we know that roughly 97% plus VC dollars are typically allocated, it can be very difficult with different founders saying that getting support locally in Chicago has been pretty cumbersome, especially early on in their business, and feeling like they have to actually leave in order to get the recognition and then sort of come home to then continue to grow their companies. So, I want to start with you, Neal, here on this question, but what needs to change in the Chicago ecosystem to create more of those opportunities for diverse founders, for those returns to generate, to stay right and build in the city? And I think that one of the solutions you talked about earlier in the conversation maybe might speak to that, but definitely give us a broad.
Sure.
broad.
Yeah, because like, again, you already knew what I was going to say. I'm trying my best to be the solution, right? Like, I'm trying to do what I can about it, because I don't know the answer. I don't know the ultimate answer on how we solve it. I do know that there are a number of strategies, and if we can unify our efforts, TechRise being one of them, my new fund being one of them, my capacity as an investor, our networking and our connectivity and our commitment to this being very necessary, can help. But really, it's first measuring. It's actually seeing what the situation is and having, like, as objective as possible, a lens that we can look at this through that shows what the gap is, what the opportunity would be elsewhere, what they're doing differently than us, what we can learn from them, and then what unique aspects of our community we need to channel in order to make this the best place for founders to get capital who need it. So it's a very common thing for a lot of founders in Chicago in particular to talk about how hard it is to raise here, and there are a lot of facts to back that up. That being said, I would encourage everyone not to be discouraged, because if you get our help, you talk to Leandro, you talk to Jessica, you talk to Samir, you talk to me, and other people that have been, in this event, we will help you prepare to give your best shot at getting funding here, and you can do it. And the folks who do get funded here get the support of the entire community. So while it might be a little harder, it's sometime worthwhile to get that tough love, because Chicago as a community really rallies around its successes and wants to make sure that every founder here succeeds. So I'm a fervent believer in that. I've been here for a little while, 14, 15 years. So I've seen that enough to know that this is the right place for me to stay and be a good investor.
I love that sentiment. Thank you so much for sharing, Neal. Jessica, I want to ask you to respond specifically to some of Neal's optimism here. And sort of how that might translate for founders who are frustrated and who may have had the same length of time as Neal in the Chicago space and have just been hitting walls, and sort of what you feel like will be the best case scenario as Chicago continues to focus on some of those early idea founders.
Yeah, I share the same optimism. So I think that with the pandemic, some of this will be diversifying the way that people invest. I mean, I've seen folks from the West Coast even expanding their range and talking about, top tier venture firms, which is not the thing that we want, of course. But what I mean to say about that is tech is getting broader and the ecosystems are shrinking in terms of locations, which I think means that more access to dollars. And for the venture capitalists, specifically in Chicago, I think that in investors in Chicago, we have to do a better job at actually talking to founders and being those first institutional dollars to go in. And that means building relationships early and often. And I think it just really resonates around what Neal is talking is like, it's more we have to do the work. Folks have to reach out and continue to demonstrate their success and, share their brand and be very social with their the work that they're doing. But I really think it's on the work of the investors to actually reflect out and say, on Twitter, Clubhouse, Medium, panels like this, and everywhere else, we want to talk to you. We're really excited about what you're doing, and we want to hear from you. So I think it's back on us, and I think that with the push of more VC coming toward the Chicago area, there's going to be a greater focus or lens on investors to really do that outreach. So I'm an optimist about it.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Leandro, I would love for you to also respond. What are the changes that need to be created to provide more opportunities? And how does this really mission your work as an analyst at M25?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm probably would have had a bit more of a pessimistic answer a couple of months ago. And because I'm encouraged by some of the initiatives that have been coming up, and I guess cautiously optimistic about them in terms of like I want them to, more of them to rise up, these current ones to succeed. And I'm talking about things like TechRise, like like that grand pitch competition thing they're doing, like once that starts revving up, like that has a lot of potential. Kind of replacing the friends and family round for Black and brown founders in the area. Other funds coming up, like a lot of diverse founders, are leaders of Jump Cap. Forgetting the name right now. Jumpstart, I believe. And there's been more early stage capital coming up as well in the region, not just in Chicago, like Chingona Ventures or Samara, Lightship, etc. And if anything, I like to see more of those more diverse led initiatives and firms coming up. Like I'm involved with the Latinx incubator. Like, we could say that founders are over mentored, but quality mentorship and like putting them on game about how to put their best foot forward, etc. Like that's still, I believe, super crucial. So I'm encouraged in seeing those programs level up. And then what I would like to see is it's hard, but like I would like to see more angel investing happening in the region. I know there are folks out there like Edgar at CDW that's pretty active in that realm, but I like to see more of that happening as well.
Thank you so much, Leandro. And Samir, I'd love for you to close us out on this particular discussion. What needs to happen to break this wide open so that when we come to the table next year, the landscape is completely changed? I mean, you spoke to data, you spoke to transparency. How do we continue to make sure that this change is not just talked about, but it does happen and we are monitoring the progress?
Yeah. Last word. That's a lot of pressure, but I'll do my best. So I think let's see. So I feel like this was really core to how we were starting ThipStar, and I think what we saw was alternative models were needed. So I think with us, we were intentional about building a model where Black-led startups succeeding that we invest in would allow for more startups to succeed too. So it's all the returns staying within our fund. But I think what was beyond that as well, beyond our model, it was also our approach. So I'm with the co-founders of ThipStar. So three of the individuals, Stella, Osa, and Nate, are Black tech founders. And so we spent a lot of time on figuring out what is our rubric on evaluating founders. And so one of the questions we started with was, what were the questions you wished you were asked when you were raising funding yourself, right? What are the non-traditional dimensions that are not being looked at right now in traditional VC? So I think like the approach as well matters as well as the alternative models. But I think what I also want to add to what Leandro said, I think it's awesome that these initiatives are starting, but I think what's going to be really core is that we all work together and that we don't do this in silos. So whether it's co-investing, cross collaboration of supportive services, I think it's really key. I think historically I've seen in Chicago there have been things that have started and maybe stuttered, but I think that collaboration is going to be key, and I'm really excited. So yeah, with TechRise, Long Jump, all of these, Fifth Star, I'm very excited about what we can do together as a community and also as a city together.
I love that. Well, if this panel is any indication of where Chicago is heading, I feel extremely optimistic and really look forward to seeing the work and continuing to see your influence across the stage here. Just again, wanting to thank each and every one of you for participating this afternoon, and really excited again for where this ecosystem is headed. And thank you all for joining us this afternoon.
Hello, my name is Stephen Shaw, and I lead our community engagement work at Verizon, particularly focused on the Chicago and on the Milwaukee markets. I like to do three things to close out this broadcast today. The first is to say thank you. The second is to talk about the significance of when we held this event. And the third is to provide a call to action. So first, thank you. Thank you to who attended. Thank you to all of our participants. Thank you for our partners at DCI who produced this broadcast and the videos that were played within the broadcast. And thank you to all of our partners. You certainly know about our founding partners, Verizon P33 in 1871. There are a number of other thought leaders and wonderful organizations who are on this journey with us. The second thing is to talk about how significant it is and what could be a better representation of Women's History Month than have what we call our leading ladies featured in this video and their organizations coming together. So Nia Mathis at Verizon, Betsy Ziegler at 1871, as well as Penny Pritzker from P33. We thank you for your leadership, not only within your organizations, but across the nation where you have distinguished yourselves. I also want to shout out two other ladies who you did not see on camera today, but were integral to us being here. The first is my CSR colleague at Verizon, Katie Davis. Katie and I have worked closely over the past 5 months to put these pieces into place, so I thank her for her partnership. Also, Diane Primo. Many of you in the Chicagoland area know or certainly should know Diane, and after a number of conversations, Diane really inspired me to put thoughts on paper and to present a proposal to our leadership, which eventually became TechRise. But Diane didn't stop there. She actually brought some of our partners, including P33, to the table. So thank you for your continued thought partnership, Diane. And then finally, we've heard today from founders, we've heard from funders, we've heard from government and policy personnel. And so if there's any message that's come through, it should be that TechRise aims to be a most inclusive endeavor, because we know that when we can bring all sectors, all industries together, we can work to solve seemingly intractable problems. You've already heard Nia talk about the fact that at Verizon, we endeavor to create the networks that move the world forward. And so if you think about a network is like a frame. Frames are great, frames are necessary, but you don't create a frame just to create a frame. You create a frame because of the art that can go inside of that frame, because the magic is in the art. And so what's our call? Our call is that you join us. Who is you? Well, if you are an institutional philanthropist or you're in philanthropy, join us and contribute to our early stage pre-seed fund. If you are a corporation, join us because you can participate and donate to our fund, but you can also utilize our TechRise database for business diversity opportunities, not just to fulfill a quota, but getting diverse business partners who can add value to your organization. If you are a funder, we want you to have an early line of sight into some of the unique and innovative problems and challenges that our community is seeking to solve. And finally, if you are a founder, obviously, we want you to become part of our network and leverage all the that are available. And by the way, even individuals, we will have a crowdfunding platform. So if you have 10, $50, $100, and you want to contribute to this movement, you can contribute and know that your funds via our pitch competitions will go directly into the hands of a Black or Latinx founder. I think Betsy and Penny, as well as Nia, said it already. When we get together, we can do difficult things if we come together in a cross-sectional, cross-industry, cross-functional way, and we do it with intentionality. And that's what TechRise is about. And so once we do, not only will our founders and our businesses rise, our communities will rise, our society will rise. So thank you, and join us as we embark on TechRise.